Now, we've been talking about compulsory voting proposed for local government elections. I want to move to the topic of drug testing politicians. Amanda Wilson, the Liberal candidate in the seat of Black, you may have heard Matt Abraham this morning on 5AA Breakfast with Dave and Will talk about this, and he played a grab of Amanda Wilson saying she'd welcome the compulsory drug testing of our state politicians. Obviously a contentious issue to some degree in the seat of Black, although the former member claims it's a deep fake, as we know. However, regardless, Amanda Wilson wants to see this happen. Some other pollies do as well. And we'll get on to that with Sarah Game, One Nation MP. I just want to start off with the council issue, though, because Sarah Game has had legislation involving council elections before state parliament. She joins me now. Sarah Game, good morning.
Good morning, Matthew.
You've put forward legislation about the transparency of council elections as the nomination period comes to an end. Talk us through that, and I understand your bill has passed one House of Parliament.
That's right. The bill did pass the upper house last night, which is great, and I expect it will actually either pass the lower house or be incorporated anyway by the government into their own reforms. But as we've spoken previously, the current situation is that when you nominate yourself in these local government elections, the community doesn't actually find out who's nominated or, in fact, if anyone has nominated until after the nomination date has closed. And so that didn't make sense to me in terms of transparency and also in the sense of making sure we've got enough competition in the community. And so this piece of legislation will mean that as soon as somebody is nominated or within the 24-hour period, that becomes public information and the community is aware that that individual is running. And hopefully that would give others the chance to put their hat in the ring as well.
Does that happen for state or federal polls? Do we know who's running before the nominations close?
Well, that's a good question, Matthew. I think you certainly do. You know, people want people to know earlier, and they start their campaigning, and I think that is more widely available. But certainly, that's not the case for local government. And as we know, we've got very poor voting turnout as well for local government. So anything we can do to improve public interest, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Should the elections be compulsory? Frank Pangello has put forward legislation, as you'd be aware, into the upper house to have council elections compulsorily, have people vote compulsorily in those elections. Should that happen?
Look, I think that's an interesting question. I don't have a strong view on that at the moment, but what I do think is that it would be a really positive step if we could make the community more interested in who's nominating themselves for these positions and to want to take part in having their say about who's going to be nominated or who's going to take up those privileged positions. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Sarah, now, in terms of drug testing MPs, we've spoken about this before as well. And interesting, Amanda Wilson coming out, the Liberal candidate for the seat of Black in Saturday's by-election, in favour of it, if only more were.
Well, I absolutely support random drug testing of politicians and their staff, as I think I've mentioned before, because I actually think everybody working in Parliament House should be held to high standards, so not just politicians but also their staff. But, of course, politicians are making legislation. They should be held to a high standard and be an example to the community. And so I can't see really any argument against it, although I did read that apparently our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was against random drug testing of federal politicians. So certainly some seem to be against it, but I can't understand the argument against that at all.
No. So politicians and their staff, because they bring their own staffers with them, their own hires. What about staff? You say everyone working in Parliament House. So what, cafeteria staff should be included? The library staff, the maintenance guys, should they be part of it as well?
Well, I don't feel so strongly about, I guess, those staff. When I'm talking about staff, I really mean the staff that are working very closely. Certainly no one should be taking illegal substances, but I do think that the staff that work with politicians are also acting in a very privileged position, and they're privy to a lot of sensitive information, and they do assist with decision-making. And so everybody really needs to be held to account and held to a high standard in those types of roles.
Would legislation be needed to make that happen, or is it just a matter of somebody knocking on the doors of MPs when they're in Parliament saying, here, blow into this?
Well, look, I think that, and certainly I would be happy without legislation to take any level of drug testing, but I think legislation probably is required. I think there have been members in the past who have considered that, and certainly I would be happy to consider putting legislation like that forward as well, and maybe the appetite is right at the moment for that.
Yeah, all right. We'll see what happens next. Sarah, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with your bill too on local councils. I think that's important. I imagine for state and federal elections, the candidates are very, very keen to make themselves known. So whether there's disclosure before the dates close or not, I don't reckon there is. But regardless, they're out there promoting themselves. Seems less so with councils. Some do. Some let you know well in advance they're running in councils, but a lot of them you've never heard of. And here's one, a text from somebody saying, would love for you to give me an issue. I'll go to the local government council members we're to vote for when they never show their face and see how they respond, as it won't be in an assisting manner. They do nothing, in my view. A lot of questions. A lot of people question the decisions politicians make and say what they're thinking. Are they on drugs? We now have the opportunity to find out, says David. Yeah. Indeed. On the subject of drug testing politicians, I think giving them a polygraph test is more appropriate, as they're all professional BS artists. Good on you. Thanks for the text. 16 past.